Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really powerful idea from author Adam Grant that might just flip everything you think you know about success on its head. Turns out, how you collaborate with people could be the single biggest factor in your whole career. So let's just start with a really simple but kind of profound question. When you walk into work, what's your default mode? Are you trying to figure out how you can add value to others, or are you more focused on what you can get out of every situation? This one little distinction, well, it's the bedrock of your entire professional identity. All right, so let's break this down. Grant's research shows that pretty much all of us lean into one of three main styles of interaction. And as we go through these, I bet you're going to start recognizing not just yourself, but probably everyone you work with, too. So on one end of the spectrum, you have the takers. Their main question is always, what can you do for me? On the complete opposite end, you've got the givers, who are always asking, hey, what can I do for you? And then right there in the middle, you have the matchers. Their world is all about fairness, reciprocity, the whole you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of deal. Okay, now this is where things get really, really interesting. Researchers looked at performance across all kinds of jobs. We're talking sales, engineering, even medicine. And what they found, well, it was not what anyone was expecting. So the first big surprise was that, sadly, givers were often the worst performers. They were at the bottom in the ladder. Why? Well, they were either getting totally burned out trying to help everybody, or they were just getting taken advantage of by their more selfish coworkers. Okay, so if the givers are struggling, then who's crushing it? It's not really the takers. They might get ahead for a little while, but eventually people see them for what they are and stop trusting them. So that must mean the matchers come out on top, right? The ones who keep everything fair and square? Nope. And this is the craziest part. In a fascinating twist, the data showed that givers also filled the ranks of the top performers. So get this, they are overrepresented at the very bottom and at the very top of the success ladder. This is what we call the giver's paradox. So this paradox leads to the million-dollar question, right? What is the big difference between the givers who fly high and the ones who crash and burn? Well, it's not about how much they give, it's about the strategy behind how they give. The key difference is the goal. The givers who fail are really just people-pleasing. They say yes to every single person, every single request. But the successful givers, they're not there to please people. They're there to help people. And that's a huge difference. They set boundaries, they're strategic about who they help, where they help, and how they help, so they can make a real impact without running themselves into the ground. Okay, so that's the individual playbook, but how do you apply this to a whole company? Well, to build a culture where givers can really thrive, the first step is kind of counterintuitive. It's not about hiring more givers. It's about being super careful about who you let onto the team in the first place. You know that saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch? It's absolutely true here. One single taker can just poison the well for everybody else, creating this atmosphere of distrust that completely wipes out the good work of several givers. That makes screening for this stuff absolutely critical. But how do you even spot a taker in an interview? Well, here's a surprisingly simple diagnostic tool. Just take a second and think of your own number. What percentage of people do you think are, grabbing at least $10 worth of stuff from the office every month? Is it 10%, 30%, maybe 70%? This is fascinating. Our guesses about how other people behave often say a lot more about ourselves. Takers tend to give a much higher number because they're basically projecting their own behavior onto everybody else. It's how they justify what they do. Hey, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. I'm just looking out for number one. So you can actually use this as an interview technique. You ask about a specific taker behavior, like hoarding information, and just see how common the candidate thinks it is. Now, a high estimate isn't an automatic deal breaker, but the justification? Well, I just think people are fundamentally selfish. That is a massive red flag. It often tells you a lot more about them than it does about humanity. Okay, so you've screened out the takers. Awesome. Now what? Once you have the right folks on your team, you have to create an environment where your givers are protected, where they're celebrated, and where they can actually do their best work. The research really boils it down to two critical things you can do culturally. First, you have to make sure that generosity gets seen and gets rewarded. And second, and this one is maybe a bit more surprising, you have to create a culture where it is totally safe and normal for people to ask for help. This is just a brilliant example of how you can build generosity right into the system. At the tech company Corning, to get the highest honor, the title of Fellow, you have to be a top innovator, sure.
But individual genius isn't enough. You also have to prove that you've helped other people succeed. In this kind of culture, the real stars are the ones who lift up the entire team.
Now for that second part, making it safe to ask for help. It might sound a little backward, but get this. Research shows that the vast majority of giving at work, we're talking 75 to 90% of it, starts with someone asking for something. Givers are usually ready to help, but they can't read minds. They need to know who needs help and what they need. Things like this reciprocity ring exercise can totally change a team's dynamic. It makes asking for help normal, which unlocks all this hidden potential and builds stronger connections. And what's really interesting is that over time, this can even start to influence the takers. They might join in at first just to fit in, but experiencing the benefits of a giving culture can actually lead them to change their behavior for real. So look, here's the big takeaway. The goal isn't to try and prove that givers win in every single situation, every single time. That's just not how life works. The real message here is actually way more powerful than that. The core idea is that, sure, any of these styles can get you to a certain level of success, but the path built on helping others, that's often the most meaningful and the most sustainable one. So maybe the best way to serve yourself, to reach your own ambitious goals, is to start by finding a better way to serve others. Thanks for watching.